Hear me. If it is fire you carry, fear nothing. Every opposition becomes a platform for your manifestation. It is not pulpits that announce us, it's the battles we won or we win that announce us. That is the story of revival. And that's why when you hear of revival, you will hear the things they conquered. Paul said, if after the manner of men I fought the beasts of Ephesus, he brought down Diana, the goddess of Ephesus, and those things became the platforms upon which his name was noised abroad. The second junction of revival is the story of trials, is the story of persecution, is the story of tribulations that you are able to endure. And the third thing about revival is that mighty men are born. When you have had encounters and when you have survived persecution of necessity, you become a mighty man. Because a man who is a true revivalist is part of the armies of heaven. And at that point, others who have gone through the same process, that's when connections begin to happen. Because the badges of those warriors are their encounters and their trials. And you will find men of like passion. You'll find men of like process. They will begin to connect with you, and then you begin to have synergistic amplification of what God is doing. In 1 Chronicles chapter 12 verse 22, the Bible says daily men joined themselves with David until his host became like the host of God. That's when there is explosion in revival. 2 Samuel 23 from verse 8, when the stories of these men were told, we knew that they were not ordinary men. 2 Samuel, look at the men, 23 from verse 8. Look at the men that accompanied David. Are these men? That's why I'm telling you, forget politics. There's something God will do to you. That's when your spiritual dimensions will show. All of us are wearing suits, but this is not how we look like in the spirit. In the spirit, some of us have wings. That's why we fly to altitudes in the spirit that even those who are scholars can't understand. You are talking, and people who are philosophers and theologians, they are asking you, which Bible are you reading? You are not reading. You are given access to the oracles of God because you have wings in the spirit. There are those who have horns. That's why when they enter a nation, the nation is shut down. Is that horn that challenges all the forces of that nation and bring them down. It's not about publicity stunt. It's a horn. It said, my horn hast thou exalted like the horn of the unicorn, for you have anointed me with fresh oil. There's a new downpour, there's a new outpouring. That's what exalted your horn. And when a man who has horn shows up in a place, you can say the land is dry, you can say the territory is hard. Wait until those who have horns show up. That's when you will know the horns that scattered all of the horns that have put Jerusalem and Judah in bondage. Because when a nation is in bondage, it's a horn at work. And when a nation is delivered, it's also a horn at work. There are certain horns that nail people down, and there are certain horns that break people open. And then there are some of us that glide in the spirit because our feet are standing on horses. That's why you have a speed in your life that men cannot understand. They are wondering, what are you doing? It's not what are you doing. What has been given to you is the right question. Because if you don't have what is given, you will never do it, even if you copy everything. But those things are not given because you have a desire. They are given because you pass the test of encounters and you pass the test of process. 2 Samuel 23 verse 8. Okay, let's read scriptures. If I continue like this, I won't be able to share anything. It said, these be the names of the mighty men whom David had. It said, the Tachomat that sat in the seat, chief among the captains. The same was Adoni the Esnite. It said, he lifted up his spear against 800 whom he slew at one time. That means one man had strength beyond 800 men. That's why I was asking earlier, what is the indicator for a big church? Because you can have a church of 4,000. Another man has a church of 20. And each of them is stronger than 800 men. So when those 20 men come together, you are looking at over 16,000 people. So which church is bigger? One man took 800 men at one time. So every day he goes out, he can conquer 800. And that's not all. Go to the next verse. It says, and after him was Eleazar, the son of Dodo the Ahohite. It says, one of the 3 mighty men with David, it said, when they defied the Philistines and were gathered together to battle, and the men of Israel were gone away. So the whole nation was not around. 3 men went to fight a garrison of armies. In verse 10 he said, he arose and smote the Philistines until his hand was weary and his hand cleaved to the sword. And the Lord wrought a great victory that day, and the people returned only to meet the spoil. When Israel came back, 3 men had conquered an army. They only came to pack the resources. And the guy fought until he couldn't open his hand anymore. He became one with his weapon. That's the level of dexterity that the guy had in warfare. And then that was not enough. He said after him, see the way they were ranking men. One slew 800. One shot down a whole garrison until he became one with his weapon. And he said after him was Shammah, the son of Agag the Hararite. He said, and the Philistine. Are you seeing that the excellency of this man is not the parties they had with David? It's not the occasions they went with David. The excellency of this man were the battles that they conquered. The excellency of this man were the victories that they wrought for God. This is the story of revival. That men from obscurity will become veterans. That generations to come will remember. Not because of them, but because of what they did for God. This is what we came here to cry for tonight. I don't know the kind of life I'm living, but Lord, may my legacies for you never be forgotten. I know I came from obscurity. Nobody is a pastor in my lineage. Nobody is a leader in my lineage. Nobody has money in my lineage. But there are encounters that can end human limitation. Limitations of money, limitations of empowerment of the spirit, limitations of empowerment that warrants human connection for relevance. All of those limitations, there are encounters that counter them. And then there are dealings that if God grants you grace and you go through, he can entrust you with things, and like this mighty man, you too can leave a mark for your generation. That is the story of revival. And if you read church history, you will find men who were nothing suddenly became warriors. How many of you heard of the Azusa Street revival? A man called William Smale, one of his eyes blind. He was a black man in a community where blacks were despised, in a community where black men had no voice. And the man hid in obscurity, in prayers, until he was invited to a meeting where people were praying, because the original preacher could not come. So he was not even qualified to be invited for the meeting. And when he showed up, he introduced a prayer program for 2 weeks. And prayer began. Prayer could no longer stop. They had to jack the prayers from 5 hours to 7 hours. And all of a sudden, a street that was obscured suddenly became one of the most popular streets in human history. Not because the president came to give them connection. At that period was when Zion City was reigning. It's not like Alexander Dowie came to say this is a man of God. He was there in obscurity. Encounters and process defined his life. And what broke out of Azusa Street, men cannot recover from it for a lifetime. What is it that is troubling you? There is a spirit. He said when the spirit is poured upon us from on high, he said the wilderness can become a fruitful field, and a fruitful field can become a forest. Listen, it doesn't matter if you were a desert, you can become a forest. But the thing is, can you wait for the outpouring? Can you pass the test of encounters? Can you pass the test of process? Can you pass those tests? If you do, of necessity you become a mighty man. And when you become a mighty man, it doesn't matter who fights you. Human reproach counts for nothing, because now you have been vetted by heaven, and it is principalities of the third heaven that will stand to defend you.